My name's Leanne, and I just want to thank you, obviously, for asking me to do this. I'm pretty excited. I'm married, coming up to 34 years with my childhood sweetheart. We have three adult children, two grandbabies, and one on the way, so I'll have three. I'm self-employed. I work from home. Basically, I support business owners, coaches, and entrepreneurs doing things for their business just to help them move their business forward.
Awesome. That's great. So how did you get into running then? Because living up in Canada, at least for me, living in the desert, like my idea of running is like, oh, it's warm and sunny, but I guess at this time of year, it's pretty cold and dreary up there, right?
It is. And to be honest, this is why I got out. I'm getting out still, but I'm starting to think maybe I'm not an all season runner anymore. We'll see how the winter plays out. But no, I actually started late in life. I was almost 30 when I started running, and I started running by walking. So my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer and passed away when I was 29, and I had an opportunity to walk for breast cancer to raise money. And so that was a 2-day event, 60K, which seemed absolutely insane, and I just couldn't even fathom doing it. And but I jumped in immediately, and that should have been a tell for me that I was destined for some, unexpected things. If it was hard, I wanted to jump in and do it. So that's how I started. I started doing walks and long walks, and then eventually I got bored of walking and I started running. So I would run literally light post to light post, and then it would be one block to another block. And then I started I was a road runner. Obviously, I think most people start that way, depending on where you are, but that's how I started. And then I got this crazy idea. It was funny. I wasn't even a trail runner when I signed up for Grand to Grand in 2016. So I was just starting to explore it, and I realized I had to start training in the trails. That's how I got started.
Well, you went all in. It seems like most people maybe do like a half marathon or even a 50K for a trail race first. They don't do a 7-day stage race.
Yeah, well, I was starting to run, but it was 2013 was my first marathon, and then I had a couple of injuries and a couple of setbacks, and then in 2015 it was December 2015 when I think I saw something on Facebook or something caught my attention, and it was Grand to Grand. And I was like, wow, like that seems insane to me. And my motivation for wanting to do something that terrified me, but excited me at the same time was I saw it as an opportunity. I was working with, just youth. I've always had a heart for young people, and I was raised by a single mom, and I wanted to do something that somehow I could tell young people that they could do anything. So if you put your mind to it, if you committed to something, if you set a plan, if you followed through on it, they could do something. And then I saw this Grand to Grand, and I thought, what a thing to do. If I can do this, which is completely outside of my comfort zone and experience and knowledge and everything, then that would be an example to them that they could do anything. And so that's how I came upon it. And I heard Ray Zahab speaking at a running room event, and he was coaching. And I asked if I could have coffee, and I hired him as my first running coach. And he got me to the finish line in 2016.
That's awesome. And I guess now we're in 2023, almost 2024, which I guess by the time this is released, it'll be 24. But you've done Grand to Grand 4 times now, right? Or 3 times?
Yeah.
4 times?
Yeah, 4 times. Yeah, 4 times. 2023 completed 4 times. And I'm not winning. I'm not getting the podium. I am chasing cutoffs, to get to the end. But I'm proud to kind of say that, like, I'm a finisher. From day one, even in 2016, when I sign up, I make a commitment to myself that I'm all in, and nothing's taking me off that course unless if physically I can't do it and the doctor kicks me out, then I'm done. Or if I miss a cutoff, because those things are out of my control. If I've done everything else, then I have to listen to what they say. So, so far, knock on wood, it's been, I've made it. It's been close. This year was close on day one. We almost missed a cutoff, but we did it.
Nice. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think it's really important for us to challenge ourselves, and a lot of times in ways by doing things that are kind of unfamiliar to us. Like, like for you got into running, now you've done Grand to Grand quite a few times, but like it's still a challenge, because any way you cut cut the race, it's still 6 days or 7 days of running. It's a hard process. So like,
oh, for sure.
Why do you think it's important to challenge yourself and even challenge yourself with the same thing maybe a few times?
Well, because I think if you don't challenge yourself, you have no idea what you're capable of. And so I think, for Grand to Grand, even though I've done it 4 times now, each race was different and I was different. So I was coming in it from different experiences. This year I moved. And so I was coming at my training completely different than I was used to. I think that when we challenge ourselves to do something, each time I sign up, it's kind of for a different reason as well. And it could be a personal challenge for me, or it might be a challenge for someone else that I want to show them anything's possible, or fundraising. This year, the challenge was being part of a team. That was incredibly difficult because of the emotional aspect. It's one thing to look after yourself emotionally and physically and all the demands that are there. It's another thing to work with a team because you had to come in and out of checkpoints. And so that challenge was, really, truly what it's like to care for somebody else or to have them care for you. To consider somebody else, you had to get them to that checkpoint, and hopefully to the finish line. So, and then when you lost a team member who didn't make it, there was the emotion of what that felt like and going through that. So I think challenging yourself, there's always new limits. And, I want to continue to find ways for me personally to see what I'm capable of, because it's so much mental. I mean, the physical aspects there, you have to train, you have to be prepared. But the mental aspect, that's where so many people come into this and mentally they quit.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It seems like, just from my observations anyways, a lot of people just kind of maybe they're in pain and they're a little frustrated or tired or something, and they throw in the towel versus maybe just sitting down for a minute. Because a lot of times these people have maybe 3, 4, 5 hours until cutoff, but they're just like, I'm done. Yeah. But I've experienced this in races before where I'm having a really bad day and I sit there for a second, I drink some water, kind of collect my thoughts and everything. And then it's like, okay, like this actually isn't that bad. And like, how cool is it that I'm out here in this beautiful place right now? And from that point forward, it's like you can kind of just keep moving and doing like these hard things that are challenging. Yeah.
And I think never quit at night in that dark place, right? If you're going to quit, or at least like you said, there's time to make it to the checkpoint. So get to the checkpoint and then get out again. And if you don't make the next checkpoint, or you make it to camp, wait until the morning and then decide if you're going to continue. Don't quit at night. I think because it's amazing if you have just a break, just mentally a break, physically a break, time to just kind of not be in the intensity of that moment of wanting to quit. And it's amazing how many people will get back to the start line if they can do that. Just don't quit at night,
Yeah, definitely. And like, I guess thinking of that, just a quick story, like, years ago, I was running a race in Utah that was a timed event. It was a 12-hour race, and there was just repeats up this mountain. So it was like a 6.5-mile trail just up and down for 12 hours. And I think it was 5 laps I was on. I had like an hour and a half until the finish, like the cutoff time. And I was like, oh, I'm done. And I was just ready to call it quick. So I'm like, oh, I can't do another lap. Like, there's no point. And my girlfriend was just like, she wouldn't let me say no or quit. And she kind of just like brought me to the aid station, shoved a bunch of food in my mouth and pushed me out and just made me go. And at the time, I was kind of like, oh, what a jerk. I'm so mad at you right now. But then I ran my fastest lap of the day and I came in just under the 12 hours. And so in my head, I didn't think it was even possible to do that. But just because she gave me that little bit of a push, and then I challenged myself from there on, like, thankfully, like, she was there and did that for me. And then I had a great day. And like, I was really excited about that. But I think a lot of times we kind of sell ourselves short, like, oh, I'm done, I can't go anymore, or just whatever. But like, really, we have a lot of potential that's probably just untapped.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this was your girlfriend, but that's how important the volunteers and the aid stations are in an event like this, right? Like, I can remember, I think it was 2019, and 2019, I think, was my worst year ever. And I was sick. I think I had a heat exhaustion. I was throwing up. I couldn't keep food or water down after. It was brutal. And I remember coming to, I think it's checkpoint 4 when you're down by the slots, and you're coming back up the top, and then you hit the dirt roads after heading into camp. So anyways, I remember getting there, and Bill, was at that checkpoint, and he looked at me, and everything on my face, he just looked at me and he said, "What do you need? Do you need a hug or do you need a kick in the ass?" I said, "I need a kick in the ass." Because I knew if he hugged me, I was completely broken and I was done. Like I was done and I was going to call it. But if he just filled up my water bottles, kicked me out, that I would make it into the last checkpoint. And so I needed him to do that. And that's what he did.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it seems like we all have different things that motivate us, because like maybe for you that worked, maybe like for somebody else, like the opposite would have been. Yeah. And so it's really interesting. But I guess along those same lines too, like we're all inspired and motivated by different things. Like for somebody, it could be like, well, like you were saying earlier, it's like because of your mom, you started doing these things and that was your inspiration. Maybe for someone else running Grand to Grand, like, I don't know, their kids inspire them or whatever reason they have. Like maybe they just want to prove to themselves that they can do it. Then I guess also along that other line too, is that we're all inspired to do different things based off of just like what we're motivated for in those moments. Like maybe someone's inspired to say, I don't know, like increase their deadlift or their squat at the gym, or even just go for a mile walk. Like that could be like the thing that's motivating them. So I think we have all these different things that inspire us. And it's interesting, I guess, that like somebody could sign up for Grand to Grand and like that's their like thing to get them in shape and ready. But maybe for someone else, it's I don't even know what it could be. It could just be anything. Really, it's interesting.
Well, fundraising. It could be anything, right? We have people that come in and they're fundraising, and it's life and death for some people. So yeah, I think the inspiration part for themselves, Grand to Grand. My gosh, there could be people, and it's interesting because I think you do have to have a why. Right? Because that's part of the mental game. So why are you doing that? And use it as leverage. So if you want to be, like you said, maybe it's it's an event where they're going to get in the best shape of their lives before they show up. And that's the motivating thing because of the training and everything that's involved. It's a good leverage in their life to sort of say, I'm going to do this, or fundraising. But the inspiration, I think the people that you meet, it's absolutely insane. I remember 2016, because it was my first, it probably has all the feels, like the biggest. It was just such an incredible experience because I had nothing to compare it to, and I didn't know anybody. I was showing up. That's a big deal to travel by yourself, to show up at an event like this with very little experience, and you're thrown into these tents with people that you don't know. And I happened to be in the tent with another Canadian woman, but the other 5 guys were. We didn't know anybody, language. I think the couple were from France. Somebody was from New York. But day one, you don't really know anybody. You're kind of being polite. You're a little uncomfortable. Day 2, you're getting changed. You're doing all these things and they become like your brothers. It's just incredible. But you're laying there and each person is suffering, if you will, whether it be mentally, physically, going through it, and you're having conversations, and who they are, like what they do, doesn't matter because we're all from different walks of life and from different jobs and titles and everything, but we're all doing the same thing, which was to me so inspiring to hear the different stories that people have and that they're mostly ordinary people. Like there's elites. I haven't been in the tents with the elites, but there's elites obviously that are there, and that's a whole different game. And I can't even imagine what that's like mentally for them. But for the average person, which I think a Grand to Grand attracts a lot of people, the cutoffs are quite generous. It's just such an incredible achievement to be able to show up. Just getting there, showing up and feeling ready is such a huge, huge inspiration to anybody that's in. So for my life, part of it was I wanted my kids to see their mom do something really hard as well. And they were I don't know if you can, this is 2016. So my husband had this put together and they were they flew in to see me at the finish line. Like they were so inspired. And for me, that was like the biggest gift was to have my kids proud of their mom, to be able to do something like that. So I think other people, you're going to inspire people when you say you're doing something like this, because it's crazy, it's insane, but it's doable. Like I truly believe anybody can do it. They just have to make a commitment and train for it and, do the work. But I think anybody has the capacity to do it. And that's inspiring.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I think a lot of times we sell ourselves short, and a lot of times it's just in our heads. It's like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that. But in reality, it's like once you're in that situation and you just put your mind to it, you can do it.
Yeah.
But I think in society, we're kind of taught to, I don't know how to phrase this exactly, but like to be afraid of failure, because it's like failure is looked down upon. Like, oh, you started a business and didn't succeed, or you tried out for the soccer team and didn't get on or something. And it's like, that's almost like a shameful thing. But in reality, it's like a friend of mine says it's a stepping stone to success. Like it's just part of the process of like, just, I don't know, getting better at anything. Like no one's perfect at something they do for the first time, right? Like if you're going to run not that neither of us can do this, but run a 2-hour marathon. Like if you're going to run a 2-hour marathon, it's like, you got to take a step first. You can't just like get up off the couch and run a 2-hour marathon. Granted, like only one person's ever done that, but you get my point, right?
Yeah. Well, it's resiliency. I think that that's what, that's the other thing I would say with Grand to Grand too, is anybody I think who finishes that, I think it just, you can like anything else that hits you in life, you're like, you know what, I got this, I can do this, even if it's hard, or if it builds that faith in yourself, the belief in yourself that you can do hard things. Like it's, it is possible, and that'll be anything else that happens in your life afterwards, because you did something so hard, and I really do think resiliency is, in life, we've catered, especially, over the last number of years, even decade, where there's participation badges and all of these things. And it's like, no, you know what? People need to learn to win and fail. There's team sports and everything else, but I think it allows you to learn, to take those as lessons. What can I do different that's going to help me have a different outcome? How can I, manage this? And I think that's why, some of the people who didn't complete Grand to Grand come back, because they have something to, like my teammate this year, Frankie, he didn't complete it his first time, and he came back. This was actually Tracy was another comeback, who came back, and they killed it this year, because they were more prepared. They were determined. They learned, what did I do last time? What can I do better this time? And I think that that'll serve them so well, because they didn't just say, oh, it's not for me, I couldn't do it. They were like, no, I'm going to do it. What do I have to do to make it happen? And they came back and they killed it.
Yeah, that is really interesting and cool to see, because I think it's hard to come back once you've not accomplished something, and to almost kind of like maybe swallow your pride a little bit and come back and be, okay, now I'm going to do this, and motivate yourself. So I guess, why do you think it's important to do something without a guaranteed outcome? Because you can go do a 5K all day, right? Or all day, whatever. You could do it a 5K every weekend, and everybody that runs a little bit can finish a 5K. But and I'm not saying 5Ks are easy if you run them hard or run them whatever. But Grand to Grand is something where it's like you're running multiple days in a row, and there's so many variables as far as like the conditions and like just sleeping, eating, all these different things. And so it's like, yeah, it is doable, but it's not a guaranteed thing.
It's not a guarantee.
Finish.
Oh, absolutely.
So why is it important to do things like that?
Well, I think because there's always lessons. Like the experience itself is something that I don't think we should ever allow ourselves to be robbed of the lessons that we can learn in everything that we go through. And so I think, especially Grand to Grand or something like multi-day stage racing, because you could do everything right. Absolutely everything, and not finish just because of, like, for myself, if I didn't finish because of the heat exhaustion, I did not think I was going to finish. I was crawling one point, and Chris, I happened to be walking with that year, I think it was 2019. He literally came back because I wasn't behind him anymore. And he picked me up because I was crawling, trying to finish. And he said, hang on to my waist and just look at my feet and follow my feet. That's all you need to do. And he did that until I could start walking again on my own, until I got past that moment. And so I think that when there's no guarantee, that experience for me, to see somebody else show me that kind of care to help me. Like it was just, I don't know, like even if I didn't make it, the fact that he did that for me, or often anybody, when you meet them on the trail and you're going through this experience together, you have conversations with people and you don't know if it's what you're saying in that moment that's going to help them get through it. And so, I don't know, I just think we have to take a chance because the reward of the experience is worth it. And so regardless, I just think that we can learn so much about ourselves and about other people when we try.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. And I do find it interesting how once you're kind of out and like stripped away from like society and these like norms that we have, like once you're out there running, it's like you're with however many people signed up that year. And like everything goes out the window. Like it doesn't matter how much money that person makes or the kind of accolades they've had in the past or whatever. It's like everyone's living in the same moment and in that same environment. And nothing else really matters. It's all about getting to the finish. And I think we kind of, I don't know how to phrase it properly, but kind of like have this like tribal thing of like humans come together. And like maybe you didn't know like whoever before the start of the race, or maybe you just met them that day, but they're going to do everything they can to help you get to the finish because it's like human nature to help all of us succeed. And like some people might say like, oh, humans are selfish, but I would counter that with like, you ever been to like a stage race or an ultra before where people will literally like, quote unquote ruin their race to help and see someone else finish, which I find really inspiring.
Yeah. Well, an example of that, there's a couple of examples of people at Grand to Grand because you see them come up and that's what they do. But the one from this past year, 2023, was when Patricia or Pat, actually, I can't remember. She didn't like to be called one of them. And now I can't remember which one. So she'll probably send me a message. But anyways, I'm going to go with Patricia, and Angela, best friends, showed up, and Patricia, did she win? Or was she second place? She was second place. She came in second place at the end, but she was leader all throughout the race. And Angela came in last, and I had the opportunity to walk with Angela a few times. But Patricia went out to meet Angela. Like she went out after, like out of camp to go out and meet her and to help bring her in because she was out there for so long that night. And that's the kind of thing where you're like, people, you know, get up from out of their tents and they're limping and they got to get up off the ground to go and cheer on people as they come in, because that's what we want, is to see everybody come in. And it's such a, like, camp life is just everybody, like when you hear that somebody dropped out during the day, it's like, you're like, oh, you really wanted them to finish, you know? So I agree. Like, I think there's something incredible that we get to see in the human spirit when we're all there doing the same thing. And we want everybody to have the same end result, like to finish. It's heartbreaking. There was one guy I knew, two of them actually, I knew they were dropping at one of the checkpoints and I didn't speak the language at all. And he was crying and I was so moved, and all I could do was say, I'm so sorry, and give him a hug. And I don't know if he understood. I don't know, but my heart was broken for him because he was broken because he was making a decision that he wasn't going to finish, that he was stopping at that checkpoint. And you're just like, you know, even the language we knew. He was like, you know, thank you. And I was, but we didn't speak each other's language. So it was just incredible, you know?
Yeah. And that is an interesting thing about, I guess, like body language, if you want to call it that. I think there's so many things that we do as people, like humankind, that like, they're just universal, like a smile or like a handshake, all these things that we can do, or even just how you look at somebody with your eyes, like that can really reflect a lot. And I've been fortunate to go to a lot of places around the world and like spend time with people, and we don't speak the same language, or very, very crudely speak the same language, but we're still able to communicate, whether it's through gestures or just looking at each other and things. And it's really interesting how we're able to do that. So I bet that he knew exactly what you meant.
Oh, I'm sure it said it in his eyes, and I could see in his eyes just how broken he was, you know? So, but yeah, I think that, yeah. And again, it comes down to that experience. Even if I didn't finish, all those experiences impacted me.
Yeah. And I guess thinking too, like, as you're speaking about Patricia or Pat or
Pat.
I'm not sure.
Sorry,
Patricia.
I know. Yeah.
I'm sure she'll understand. She was great.
She will.
But it was interesting, like spending time with her and her husband throughout the week, because they're more, as far as I understand, more of like a CrossFit type family.
Totally.
They're really into CrossFit, and they're both very, very strong. But then to see them come out and like really dedicate a lot of time to running Grand to Grand, whereas that was probably something out of their comfort zone. Whereas the guy that won and her name was Nicola. She's from, sorry, I forgot where she's from.
I thought she had recently moved to Colorado, maybe.
Okay.
I think
it seems like her and Benjamin, I think the guy that won, they're strong runners for sure. Like that's what they do and they're good at it. And so maybe this was kind of like quote unquote a normal day or a typical kind of week for them. Whereas for Brent and Patricia, it was like they just went out there just something out of their comfort zone. Whereas they might not have even thought they could finish, but they went out there and did it. And I found that really inspiring where like you can do something that maybe isn't in your wheelhouse necessarily, but they did really well at it because they were focused and dedicated. And I find that inspiring as well.
Absolutely, because they had no idea the outcome. When you're talking about doing something and not knowing the outcome, they had nothing to gauge that against. Like they had no, so I think I'm sure she was as surprised coming in as a leader the first day and, but then taking it and saying, okay, how far can I go with this? So truly inspiring. Yeah.
That was really cool. They're a really fun couple to hang out with during the week and just really good people. And like, I'm going to get off on a little tangent here, but I think that's one of the coolest parts about Grand to Grand is meeting people. And just meeting people from all over the world, different walks of life, and you all come together and like everyone's dirty and smelly. And yet everyone's having a great time, even if they are in a little bit of pain. Everyone's still having a really good time out in the desert.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, they become these crazy people that they get you. Like you're the people, you don't have to explain what you're doing because they're just like, oh yeah, I get you. You're doing that crazy thing, because I mean, social media, it helps and then you have more people because, especially being here this year, the last 2 years that I've lived just outside of Calgary, I don't know anybody. I don't have anybody. I don't have any training partners. I don't have anybody that I'm connected with that understands ultra running or anything like that. So if it wasn't for the online community, I would really be isolated. And so, I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful for the people that I've met and that we are, still see. They're still inspiring me with the things that they go on to do. Because a lot of times Grand to Grand is, you had, if people have not already gone back and listened to the previous podcast, like I've listened to almost all of them, and I will listen to the rest, but they're so inspiring, the people that have been sharing. And I think that there was one guy, I think he's one of the most recent, but he's from BC.
Yeah,
and he did it and the stuff that he's doing now. And I don't know when he did it and where it was in his running, but I think it was fairly early on in his ultra running time, but very inspiring. And he just obviously fell in love with it, and that's his thing.
Yeah, definitely. And he's a really good guy. And actually, so it's Jeff Peltier. He has a YouTube channel and stuff, and he's a super good guy. And like, I actually met him at Grand to Grand, and we kept in touch. And I've seen him at various events all over the place. And he ran Moab 240 this year and did really well. And that was fun. I was out there with him too. And like, that was super fun to spend time with him a little bit because he was running, time with his girlfriend, get to know them. And they were just really good people. And it's cool to like meet these people at a race. And you might think like, oh, running's just so like, it's not important. And that maybe in itself, it's not, but the what you get out of it is awesome. Like these friendships and these relationships and the community that comes from it is just incredible. And whether you're seeing them in person or online, like you're saying, it's great to have that kind of like support network around you.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's their character too. When you see people in these, the best way you're raw, like you're just raw. Like you don't have the ability to be superficial, to be, you know what I mean? So you are meeting people at their most vulnerable, and they're like the highlights and the lows in every aspect of their day and throughout that week. And I feel like you see people, nobody's trying to be somebody they're not. Everybody is just, this is who they are. So their character shines. And so I think that's what's attractive when you meet them or you have the opportunity to see them outside. There's lots of Grand to Grand reunions when people go to the UK, let's say, or they go and have coffee and they meet up with people, or they even go on holidays together now, like certain friendships. Is it Ryan and, Ryan, and he was your Trevor, best buds from this year, and to see, and I'm connected with them online, but I believe they'll be friends for life. Because I just think that they had such an incredible experience together. Gary Jackets, I met him in 2016 as a newbie coming in, and he took me under his wing, and I've been friends with him now. We've both done it 4 times, so we both might come back and do it a 5th in 2024. And he's somebody that, I would never, ever have met him outside of Grand to Grand. And so, yeah, I just think it's the character and the people that you meet. It's the depth in a short time that you get to really see who people are.
Yeah, definitely. So thinking about like these communities and groups of people that we meet, and then also like you were saying, like having moved recently or fairly recently and not having a lot of training partners, how did you train for Grand to Grand? I know it's been a little bit different since you've moved across the country essentially, but like how did you train for such a long event, like never having done something this long before?
The smartest thing I did was hire a coach the very first time, because I really was way outside my comfort zone. Like I really had no idea. And so I gained a lot of understanding. And my personality is when I make a commitment to something, I'm going to follow it pretty consistently. So I think that in 2016, having that really benefited me and sort of built a really good foundation. So years later, I can be, even though I was training myself, moving here, especially going from almost sea level to in the mountains. And I was part of a team this year, so I knew we weren't going to be doing a lot of running. So it was going to be a fast hike is probably primarily what it was going to be. So I took advantage of that. I put myself out of my comfort zone, and I joined a local hiking group. And somebody posted one day they were going for a hike, and I'm not I'm a bit of an introvert, and I'm not a big social person. So it was outside of my comfort zone to show up by myself with people I didn't know, but I can't go to the mountains by myself for safety reasons and just wildlife and all of that. So I joined a little group, and then we went hiking every weekend, and they became, I'm friends with them all now. And I hope I can convince some of them to do Grand to Grand, but so I did that. I mean, they're not runners, they're hikers, but it was training this year was getting in the mountains, getting the hiking and wearing a pack and, getting everything sort of, it had been 4 years. The last time I did it was 2019. So I was 4 years older, had struggled through a couple of things, injuries, and I wasn't sure what to expect going back. And then being part of a team, I'm telling you, man, like a team, that's a different ballgame. That is a whole nother level of a challenge as far as, like I think I said at the beginning, but looking after yourself, but then also managing the emotions and the paces and all the difference that a team brings when you have to stick together. So yeah, I think that was the big thing, was just getting out. And I think consistency is key. Double long runs for me, always important, getting out back-to-back runs. And then when you get closer to it, I often did triple back-to-backs. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just to kind of get used to being on tired legs and getting up and doing it again and again, That was primarily the consistency, back-to-back runs, getting out and hiking a lot this year.
Well, that definitely leads right into my next and last question was, what tips do you have for people looking to sign up for Grand to Grand? And I guess there's a lot of ways you could take that one, but definitely one that I would say is the specificity there that you mentioned, but then I guess on top of that.
I think one of the ways that I personally, if I'm excited and terrified at the same time, usually it's a good indicator that I should probably do it, because it means I'm challenging myself, because I'm out of my comfort zone. I don't have the answer. Like you said, there's no guarantee outcome, but I'm excited enough that I want to challenge myself, and I want to, to do something that is hard and I'm not sure about. So I think for somebody else, like tips would be, and again, there's so many people that spoke on the podcast that offered so many valuable tips, but I think training with your gear is incredibly important. I did my 4th time this year, and I changed my backpack out very close to the race, which benefited me and it was the right choice. But I think you even said not knowing the system of where everything is can hinder you in the moment. So I think so I struggled a little bit with, where did I put that? Where did I put that? Because I was using a fairly new pack. Don't recommend that. Start, getting your pack, getting your, if you're going to use poles, you want to start practicing with poles because it's a completely different experience. Where you're going to keep your water, where you're going to keep your electrolytes, where you're going to keep, you want to be able to have everything run so smoothly that you don't have to think about it. You're just doing it. So what is your plan for hydration and for fueling during the race and recovery after? And, what does all that look like? And so, given that it's 9 months away, 10 months away, I guess, there's so much time, but now is the time to gather information, to listen to the podcasts and to read different blogs that people have that have already done it and gather your equipment. And it's also train with it. So get it a lot early enough that you can get out there so that it feels second nature. I remember the very first year I trained very early with my pack weighted. It felt like I wasn't even wearing a pack by the time I got to Grand to Grand because it was just part of me, right? It was just there. So.
Yeah, I think to kind of reiterate what you're saying, just to back up what you said, I think it was Sarah Lavender Smith who we had on the podcast last week or the week prior to that.
Might have been 2 weeks ago.
Well. Yeah, and then a couple other people, I think Jeff mentioned that, and a few other people that train with that pack specifically, and if not that specific one, at least have two. Because that way, you can, one, you don't wear out your pack right before the race, you can kind of work them both in and kind of just know exactly where, like you were saying, where things are, and you're able to pack appropriately versus being blindsided during the race and frustrated and potentially just getting stressed out about I can't find this drink mix, or I can't find my headlamp. Imagine trying to dig through your pack when it's getting dark and you can't find your headlamp. That'd be incredibly frustrating, which is just gonna kind of snowball effect down the road, and then maybe have more issues that way. So
exactly,
that's very good advice and tips from you there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think on top of that too, like you were saying earlier with Ray, you hired Ray as a coach initially, and that's a really good way to just figure out some training, because him specifically, he's done a lot of very hard, long things, so he knows how to do it himself, but then also how to teach people how to do it. So it really fast tracks. It helps you avoid a lot of the misery.
Oh, for sure.
Because if you are just out there kind of winging it, it can be really difficult and hard, especially if you're new to running or fast packing or stage racing. So having somebody to kind of walk you through some things can really avoid a lot of issues, but also even avoid injuries, which I think starting healthy is probably the biggest thing you can do for a Grand to Grand.
Oh, for sure. You hopefully you're not signing up already injured, or getting there already injured. But no, I do think that whether you're hiring somebody or whether you're connecting with people and talking about even the Grand to Grand group, every year you get very similar questions, but I think each one is so important to answer, or even I think there are hashtags probably that you could search inside the group for questions and get different people's perspective. But I think there needs to be there's value from other people that have been there and done it, but it's individual still. So just because somebody recommends something, you still have to try it for yourself and see if it's going to work for you. And somebody, yes, Ray's extremely knowledgeable, so he would see things or, give advice on something because it comes second nature to him. But each person is different. I'm somebody that if I did a lot of speed work, I tended to have little minor injuries creep up, where somebody else, the way he explained it was, it's almost like I was built for that double long run because my body responded really well to that. So finding out who you are and how you can benefit from the best training, I wouldn't know that unless I asked somebody or hired somebody. So depending on where you're at, I was a brand new newbie. Now I have the experience behind me. Even though it's still no guarantee, I feel more confident in my ability. I won't quit. I won't quit. So someone's going to have to take me off the course or, and I hope that never happens. But I do feel confident in the mental strength. And I think that, as we spoke earlier about why should some people do this, I think, resiliency, depending on what where you've come from in life and what your experiences are. I think when you do hard things and you succeed in life or in training and running or whatever, it gives you the evidence that you need that you can do it. You can get through something, and it'll translate like into your running and life. It'll give you the confidence that you need to just don't quit.
Yeah, that's perfect, Leanne. I think we'll wrap up on that because that was just a perfect ending, and I can't even add any words to that. That was perfect.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah. Excited. Well, thank you for asking me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and taking the time, and I hope we see you back for number 5.